From the lowest to the highest, from the furthest to the nearest, from the smallest of the smallest to the greatest of the greatest, yoga is about all of life, everything we do, all of existence. My name's James Bogue. Welcome to the Whole Life Yoga Podcast. There are books on yoga. There are videos, there are podcasts, there are audio programs about yoga. These days, there are all sorts of resources available. And yet, yoga is a living oral tradition. To study and practice yoga traditionally includes gathering in satsang, in authentic togetherness, in a confidential container where we can explore what is. When we come together like this, the class, the study, the practice becomes a co-creation. And the teachings, the stories, they will come through in a unique way that is relevant, pertinent to the particular group that has gathered. I've had this experience hundreds of times over the years, but just last week, I was doing a story-based session in Prague, telling the story of Nachiketas from the Kathopanishad, amazing story. And I'd prepared quite thoroughly, but I'd prepared to be spontaneous. But the way the story came through was significantly different from how I had imagined it would. But talking with my friend who'd organized the event, many of the people who had come, it was their first time to meet me, and it was their first time to come to this type of session. And there were a lot of people who were new to the technique, the meditation technique that my friend teaches. And so the story came through in this really remarkable way. It was very much geared towards a person who was starting the practice. And I didn't know that so many of the group were new to the technique. I knew that 3 of them were, but it was only afterwards that my friend mentioned this, that actually all of these people are all relatively new. And sure enough, the teachings came through in a way that was very appropriate for that group. This is the magic of satsang. When we actually come together, this is the magic of live performance, of live theatre. Coming back to England, the timing worked very well. I was able to see my sister perform on stage last week, and how lovely that was. And it was a small auditorium, and it was 7 solo pieces, if I recall correctly, 7 women, and it was very real. It was very close. And I overheard some of the audience members, and I shared this view. What a privilege it was, how engaging it was, how moving it was, how potent it was to sit close to the artist and feel them transmitting what they wanted to transmit without filter. And this is really what it means to do satsang, to be part of satsang. It's like we gather, and in this space of togetherness, of shared presence, who knows what will be animated, what spirit will move through us and allow us to see in ways that reach beyond our habitual ways of seeing. And after this theatre performance, I then went out with my sister and a few of her friends and my brother-in-law. And in the conversation that followed, we were sharing the idea or the recognition that in these days of so much mediated content and so much artificially generated content, when we have the opportunity to gather in person, it does hit a different note. It does strike a different chord, and it resonates. And I'm of the persuasion, and I hope this is going to happen more and more, is that when people experience the beauty, the majesty, the richness of actually coming together in this more participative, traditional entertainment, live theatre, satsang, gathering in circle to actually listen to each other, it will strike this deep resonant chord and we'll be motivated to make the effort to put forth that little bit of effort that is far and away its own reward because it allows us to experience in a way that the artificial and mediated content just doesn't give access to. So I actually find it really rather strange that these days it is considered by many strange to come together in circle and sing, for example, like I do when I share kirtan, which is something I love to do. And of course, when we come together and share kirtan and share song, this is a wonderful way to foster togetherness because when we sing, we're really connecting to our ancestors. We're connecting to the heart of human culture because wherever we came out of a womb, we are the descendants of people who gathered in a circle to sing and dance and share food and story. When we gather together to sing, we create together. And this allows us to connect with each other at a level that it's before, beyond ideas that might otherwise separate or distance us from each other. So singing is tremendous medicine in so many ways. And yet, when I put on a kirtan in some parts of the world, some people find it, well, you gather in a circle and you sing, and they find that idea rather strange. Now, to me, it's strange that people find that strange because only 3 or 4 generations ago, most people, most human beings, would sing with other human beings fairly frequently, most days in many cases. And singing together is wonderfully cleansing, wonderfully healing. Singing's tremendously cathartic. It allows energy to move. So I find it strange that people find it strange to get together to do that. But I also find it strange that people find it strange to come together in circle and share from the heart, in confidence, in vulnerability, and with deep honesty, as we do in the men's group that I'm very fortunate to be part of and have been for several years now. And as we do in satsang, when I share longer programs, and this happens in the longer term online programs I do, as well as in-person retreats or longer courses. Now, when we sit together in circle, what I've experienced is it really can serve as an apprenticeship in deeper listening and deeper ways of being. When I witness different perspectives, when I allow myself to really listen from the heart to perspectives that I've perhaps never entertained before, it really helps facilitate a kind of reappraisal and searching examination of my own presuppositions. And so this type of practice of deep listening, it can really invite us to go beyond the confines of our preconceived notions. And this can invite us into what I call sometimes the beauty of the grey, beyond the black and white reductive thinking, into the rich realm of nuance, of deeper perspective and greater honesty. And I think it's really only when we muster the courage and the authenticity to examine our own honest perspectives, what we really think, not the things we've heard, not the things that are attractive to us, but what do I really think about this? When we really examine that and share it unfiltered, and we listen deeply to others sharing in a similar way, I find this just an invaluable practice to do this very foundational yogic procedure, part of the yogic method of looking in ways that reach beyond our habitual ways of looking. And this is utterly essential if we're going to go deeper into yoga. Now, when speaking about this type of circle, this type of coming together, I think it's also valid to say, well, certainly this is the case for me. I feel that the lack of this type of gathering is definitely a symptom and perhaps even one of the causes of the dis-ease and malaise in the world. We do have, as human beings, so many amazing resources available to us. Yet some of these resources, if we're to access them, I think we really need to do a much more thorough, patient, and accommodating job of fostering a space where we can really speak and listen in a way that is aiming at the truth. Because one thing I've noticed in recent times, more and more, is how in many situations it can seem that people can be speaking at cross purposes and just terminology can be so divisive. So I remember this idea is not particularly new. One of the great tragedies of human conflict is that in so many of the situations, even some of the seemingly intractable situations, if you take the people on both sides of a conflict, more than 90% of what they really would want is the same. And we get caught on these particular thorny issues that we disagree on. And so this is the tragedy, is like we're fighting when really what we deeply want, for the most part, is pretty much the same. But this century, with the advent of so much mediated content, or let's say the exponential growth of mediated content and heightened propaganda and algorithms that really feed on division and hostility and conflict, the potential for terminology to be divisive, it seems to me to have been exacerbated and amplified. And I think this is something that needs to be dealt with, something that needs to be tackled honestly, head on, and purposefully and courageously. So, just to give an example, I was recently in a circle and I felt so privileged to be in this circle because we were talking about a term, a theme, which is potentially very divisive, but this container felt very safe, was confidential in the sense that the people within the circle could speak with confidence, not afraid of being clumsy or saying something that would be taken in a way that would have them to be judged or castigated. Rather, there was a clear understanding, no, we're exploring this issue from the heart, in good faith. And the questions that we were exploring were around feminism. Now, I think feminism is a very interesting example. It's a potent example because just this word, it has so many different associations. It can be triggering in very different ways for very different people. So, for example, one person, let's just call this person A, when this person hears the word feminism, that word is associated wholly, totally with positive associations. For person A, feminism basically represents standing for all that is good and just and desirable in the world. It means standing up for what is right. It means looking into the causes of inequality and injustice and disrespect for other human beings and the earth. And this man, his take is we should all be feminists. And this is an attitude I have encountered in many people over the years, over the decades. Now, simultaneously, another person, let's call this person B thinks, no, feminism, that is a scary example of how good intentions have been manipulated by shadowy figures. Person B thinks that the feminist movement was sponsored by the Rockefellers with the prime aim of dismantling the family unit. So mortgages would no longer be calculated on a single salary. This was a means to endebt and impoverish the middle class, dishearten the populace, and leave young children in the grip and the hands of an education system which was actually designed to disempower, cripple, and dumb down, to create a weak, fearful, and fragmented society, easy to be manipulated and ultimately to be destroyed. So person B, feminism is associated with all of these very problematic and negative ideas, whereas person A, feminism means fighting the good fight. And then we have person C. Now, person C, uh, I laugh because person A, B, and C, I've not only have I met many people who hold these views, but I'm sympathetic to all of them. And person C, like me, has listened to quite a lot of Bob Marley. Person C is sick and tired of the ism schism game. Person C has also heard Satish Kumar, like I have, say, let's make all isms wasms. Isms are reactive. They perpetuate divisiveness. Let's make all isms wasms. Let's make these divisive isms things of the past. And person C is also very wary of imposed equality. Because person C, the way person C sees it is that really we're not equal. We're all unique. And that is the beauty of being a human. We're all different. We're all unique. We're not all equal. We're all different. And person C also thinks that all too often, tokenistic political correctness just further weakens the population and actually makes things worse for the very people that it is masquerading as fighting for. Person C sees this as being similar to the type of thing we see with these murderous tyrants who masquerade as human-loving, life-loving philanthropists, while their initiatives poison the soil we all depend on, and the soil that all life depends on. Their schemes disable people's immune systems, and their engineering projects fill the sky with carcinogenic pollutants. Person C says, no, 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 forget terms like that. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. We've had enough of your isms and schisms, and it's time we stand up for our rights as human beings. Enough with these policies of divide and conquer, divide and rule, divide and exploit, divide and exterminate, dressed up as fighting the good fight. Enough already. Now, person A, B, and C, that's just the beginning. There's person D, E, F, G, and so on, who also all have a whole load of preconceived or preformed ideas, associations, presuppositions associated with this term feminism. So if we're going to have a productive conversation about this potentially triggering and deeply intricate topic of feminism, the first thing we need to do is actually listen to and explore each other's and our own presuppositions so we can talk about the topic in a way that gets beyond and beneath the potentially surface triggerings that could exacerbate a sense of division and separation and otherness. I guess the feminism example is already clear, but I'll suggest another, which is kind of related, I guess, which is the word patriarchy. So let's take person D, E, and F. So person D, for example, thinks that basically patriarchy is the root and manifest form of all evil. It means exploitation, degradation, subjugation, rape of land, ravaging of populations, evisceration of the opportunity for growth and thriving of the broader population. It's just totally negative. Now, person E, on the other hand, when they hear the word patriarchy, patre, for person B, the patriarchy symbolizes something altogether rather positive. This is the pattern, this is the frame for the maintenance of that which supports wellness, harmony, and onward thriving and evolution in society. It's the structure within which the matrix of life can thrive. And it's the foundation for a robust, resilient society in which everybody can thrive, in which everybody's protected. It's associated with noble qualities of leadership and safeguarding. That's person E. And person E also sees patriarchy as that which actually supports matrimony as the foundation of a cohesive and relatively egalitarian society. And person E would point out, for example, that in societies where there is, generally speaking, a norm of monogamy and matrimony, holy, sacred matrimony, where the mother and the institution of marriage are championed or are held up as the normative ideal, those societies tend to be much more prosperous than the ones that we've seen throughout history, in which a few rich men tend to have many wives and concubines, and many men don't. And such societies tend to be less stable and allow far fewer opportunities for girls and women to thrive and share their broader gifts. So person E kind of thinks very differently from person D with regards to this term, and sees that patriarchy is actually necessary for the thriving of not just men, but also for women and girls and boys and everybody. And then we've got person F. And person F thinks that patriarchy, don't even say that word. That's the classic example of the word that is no longer a word, it's just a weapon. And for person F sees this word as a weapon of those who just want to keep us, the people, fussing and fighting and killing one another while they, the top ranking, keep on skanking away and playing their exploitative, extractive, we get rich while everybody else gets poorer game. And again, in this instance, what I think is the reality is that person D, E, and F, just like person A, B, and C with regard to feminism, while in both sets of three examples, there were people who, if we were looking at them just through the lens of their attitudes to that word, could easily be set up as adversaries or being on opposing sides. And yet, if we were to interrogate their perspective patiently, accommodatingly, listening from the heart, listening to the whole human being as we hear and experience why they have this particular perspective, perhaps this amazing thing could open up for us. This amazing thing could emerge where we realize, actually, this person has so much in common with me. This perspective has so much in common with my perspective. What we really want, so much of it is actually the same. But to get to this point, we need to listen in this spacious way, in a way that allows us to stumble, to say things that could be triggering or could be offensive without fear of being ostracized or rejected or shut down or, as often gets said these days, cancelled. And this is also, I think, a terrible tragedy, is that I know people who really value satsang, and they are honest seekers, but they feel unsafe to explore from the heart in general company. And I think this is one of the challenges that we need to face and do what we can to overcome. Because so many of us have so little opportunity to share from the heart in this unguarded way. We haven't practiced creating safe, confidential containers in which we can have these searching, inquiring conversations that allow us to dive through all these layers of presupposition and actually listen and share from the heart. But I think if we do, when we do, something really marvelous, something really wonderful can happen. Just like when we come together and sing in kirtan, and our voices somehow merge and we become part of this collective sound, and this resonance is felt within. I know this. This is part of my DNA. It strikes this deep chord of memory and homecoming within us. Similarly, if we have this experience of deep, authentic connection where previously there was a sense of disconnection, fear, and separation, this can be so healing, so transformative. So, this brings us back to the power of the circle. When we gather in circle, symbolically, so many things are happening. But one idea I find is very true, very beautiful. Figuratively speaking, we can say that in the center of the circle resides the truth. None of us can see all of it. But in the center is this wholeness beyond partiality. We all have a partial view. With our two eyes, there's always so much more that we cannot see than we can. And yet each of us can see some of this truth. And we can, with our unique perspective, we can help reveal and bring to light some of that ultimate truth. And when we come together and explore an honest satsang, then what I've experienced, and I find this so valuable, is we can and we do encourage and help and empower each other to do this deeper integration work. And when we do that, it can start to radiate out into all our relations. So my work, my efforts in the world, what's it about? Sometimes when people ask me, well, really a big part of my work, the aim is to create an opportunity for people to experience the simple joy of being themselves. Where does this come from? Well, my work comes from this hunger for deeper, authentic connection. So when I offer a class, when I put on a kirtan, what is my aim? Well, as far as possible in the circumstances, to invite this potent and magical space of satsang, of the circle, where new insights may emerge, where some type of transformation or reappraisal or new recognition may be catalyzed, and where faith can be bolstered. So I have no affiliation to an institution or a brand. I've never traded on someone else's reputation or cachet. I'm just doing my best to be of service and to be the change that I want to see. Now, I have not been doing this half as well or anywhere near as effectively as I would aspire to, but I've not given up and I don't give up. Why not? Well, this podcast, this YouTube video, maybe somebody might watch it and maybe it might make a tiny difference in that person's life. It would be wonderful if if you liked it and you shared it and encouraged others to encounter this content. And if it's useful or helpful for them, maybe they could also do the same. Because the people who have been engaging with courses that I've done, this is something I've heard many times. They find it encouraging, they find it helpful, they find it inspiring, they find it very relatable and applicable in daily life. But is it really worth it? Does it make any difference? Well, there is a story that I heard a long time ago by Lauren Isley, who was the writer, and I think it was originally in a story called The Star Thrower, which was longer, but I've heard it in various abridged variations and told live on various occasions. And this story is imprinted quite deep in my consciousness. Now, there are other stories that have the same message that I also really like, but the starfish one is the one that's coming through today. So, do our efforts make a difference? Remember, Lauren Isley's story of the starfish. It goes a bit like this. One morning, a man was walking along this long, deserted beach with the sand stretching off into the horizon and the tide rolling out to the ocean. Looking into the wind, he sees a figure in the distance. Is it another human? It seems to be contracting and expanding. As he gets closer, he sees the figure looks almost like a dancer, bending and whirling. Closer still, he sees that indeed it is another human being. It's a young man, though we wouldn't describe his movements quite as dancing. Now we can see the young man is reaching down to the sand, picking up small objects and throwing them out into the ocean. The man is intrigued. He draws closer and he calls out to the youth, "Good morning there. May I ask, what are you doing?" The young man, he pauses and is thinking, is it not obvious? Anyway, he looks up at this man and he replies, straightforward, "I'm throwing the starfish into the ocean." Now, it's not so obvious to the older man, and he says, uh, mm, but why? Uh, I mean, why are you doing that? Now, the younger man is a little bit startled. He thinks, is it not obvious? But he just says straightforward, the sun is up and the tide is going out. And if I don't throw them back, they might well die. Now, the older man, he looks up and down the beach and he says, but wait a minute, young man. There are hundreds and thousands, hundreds and thousands of miles of beach, hundreds and thousands of starfish. Do you really think that what you're doing is going to make any difference? And the young man, he looks briefly at the older man, and then he bends down, picks up another, and throws it out to the sea. It made a difference to that one. He bends down again. He throws another one out. The sun glints in his eye. Makes a difference to that one too. And the older man looks on as the youth continues, unabashed. With a starfish in his hand, the youth now looks at the older man before throwing it out towards the deep. Makes a difference to this one. And then the older man, he can no longer resist. He bends down and he joins in the younger man's humble, simple, joyful effort. It makes a difference to this one. And we might never know what difference our actions make. There is a text in the Kashmiri Shaiva tradition. A great master left a text, and one of his disciples noticed that most people were not quite understanding it in the way that he thought was appropriate. So he wrote a commentary on it. At the beginning of his commentary, he says, it may be that nobody reads this. If one person gains deeper understanding of the blessings that my master passed to humanity, then this effort will be worth so much more than I could possibly describe. But even if nobody else benefits from it, in serving my master, this is all the reward I require. And it's the idea that in doing what our heart or our conscience asks us to, it is its own reward. In this world, it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to think that what can I possibly do? we can see so many uh, discouraging stories around us, so many tragic things happening. But this is the time of the year, the solstice, the time of the year when light is at its peak, and it allows us to see very deeply. And a few years ago, I had the privilege to be teaching a retreat on a favorite theme of mine, yoga and the sun. And also a few years ago, I was teaching a course on one of my favorite texts, the Aditya Hridayam. It's a section from the Ramayana, a hymn to the sun that's very dear to me. And Aditya is a name of the sun as the son of his mother, Aditi. And so some of the names of the sun, they invoke and evoke this sense of our being part of this family of life. How really we are all related. And a couple of years ago, when I was last teaching the Aditya Hridayam, one of the participants in the course, who's a native Spanish speaker, she shared a quotation when we were considering one of the verses in which the sun is invoked as the son of its mother. She shared this quote from, I think the man is called Bert Hollinger, the founder of the family constellations therapeutic modality. And the quote she shared, as it's rendered in Spanish, was, Que nadie te haga dudar, que nadie te haga dudar. Cuida tu rareza como la flor más preciada de tu árbol. Eres el sueño realizado de todos tus ancestros. Now, I may well do it a disservice translating or attempting to render it in English, but que nadie te haga dudar. Never doubt yourself. May no one ever make you doubt. Cuida tu rareza. Take care of your unusualness, your uniqueness, your idiosyncrasies, your particularities. Cuida tu rareza como la flor más preciada de tu árbol. Take care of your particularities, your idiosyncrasies, as the most precious flower in the tree that is you. Look after your uniqueness as the most precious blossoming of the essence that is you. Eres el sueño realizado de todos tus ancestros. You are the realized dream of your ancestors. You are the culmination of your ancestors' desires. And what I think is the invitation here is all our ancestors are behind us, and they want us to do what they weren't able to do. They want us to do the unprecedented. They want us to come together in ways that we've not managed before. And I think we can do this. This is the great opportunity of these times of apparently heightened division. Divisions that the mediated realms of social media and the internet and all the rest of it are amplifying. We can see divisiveness. We can see the fear of ostracization or of being cancelled or of causing unwanted offense or being deemed to be beyond the pale when one is really just trying to make an honest inquiry into a rather problematic, nuanced subject. But I think, as the Bhagavad Gita reminds us, bigger the challenge, bigger the opportunity. Yoga means to reconcile, to harmonize, to integrate. The Bhagavad Gita set in this theater of war on this extraordinary battlefield with 18 million soldiers assembled for utter carnage. It's on that battlefield that the teaching of yoga is given. And the teaching is, let us transform the cacophony of war into the symphony of the concert hall. Let us transform the chaos of the battlefield into the beauty and harmony of a dance floor. This is what we can do. And this is what our ancestors want us to do. And I believe that this is what really the vast majority of us want to do in our hearts. In our hearts, it will take courage. But to borrow a phrase from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, we are here to enact our unique role in the making and mending of life. My part may be small, but in the challenges that are here right now, small though they may seem, let me play my part. Let me not shrink. Let me take whatever opportunity I have to make this day more beautiful. It's altogether normal that sometimes we may feel weighed down by the sorrow, the shoka, the Sanskrit word, of the past, of the mischances, of the apparent missteps. We may feel ravaged or overwhelmed by the uncertainty of the future, chinta, this anxiety, and the magnitude of the challenges that are before us. But in such situations, the teachings of yoga remind us, just start where you are. It can seem overwhelming. Just do the next best thing, the next right thing. Cultivate samadhi, cultivate integration and balance as best you can, and act from there. It's so easy to be discouraged, but don't give up, because who knows what difference your action may make. Thank you for listening. And if you would like to be part of the type of circle that I described, where we explore these time-proven wisdom teachings and how we can apply them to the challenges of our lives today, please do sign up for my mailing list. You can do it via my website. Just scroll down to the foot of the homepage or most pages, and then you will hear first about online and in-person programs, retreats, courses, immersions, in which satsang, coming together to explore what is, working through the lens of yogic story, mythology, and the sacred scriptural teachings, using them in their traditional form, which means as part of an oral tradition. It's not that we study the text in some academic way, not at all. Just recently, I was teaching in Italy, in Milan, and my host, Rosa Tagliafiero at Ashtanga Yoga Italia, she was encouraging some of her students to come. And one of them had said, I've already studied a lot of yoga philosophy, but I just found it very dry. And my friend Rosa said, just come. He's not an academic. He's got a master's in Sanskrit, but he's a practitioner. It will be nothing like what you've done before. Anyway, the student came and she said, you were right. It was totally different from anything I'd done before. Because it's a practice. In the yoga tradition, to study is to practice is to study. Gathering together in satsang, exploring the teachings in relation to our own life, our own practice. This is the tradition that I have been asked to be part of, that I cannot refuse but be part of. So if you'd like to join me in this type of exploration, welcome.